Many kids have difficulties with handwriting, the legibility of writing, buttoning, the fine motor skills. How do we work on it? This is a very common question that parents typically ask me. So I thought I'll compile all the activities that I feel are going to be helpful to develop the fine motor skills for your child. Now, before I go ahead, I want to introduce myself. My name is Reena Singh. I'm an occupational therapist. I've been working with kids for the last 25 years, supporting families. And fine motor skill was one big thing that I worked upon a lot. Uh, when I started working, I used to think, in the very, very beginning. So I knew the child development, when you see a small baby developing, the baby is first learning to come on the tummy, then the baby is learning to crawl, then kneel, then stand. So the gross motor skills develop before, and it's not like before or after, but they develop before, and the fine motor follows. It's like a, when a child is on tummy, the child is learning to pick up things and hold with their hands. When the child is crawling, where there's a lot of weight coming on the hands, the fine motor skills get even better. What I'm trying to convey is the gross motor skills are super important because the bigger muscles develop before the fine motor muscles develop. So it's important that we work on gross motors to work and to develop fine motors. So a lot of kids who were referred to me in my very early days, that was year 2000, June 2000, were the kids who had a diagnosis of cerebral palsy and very poor fine motor. So they were already undergoing NDT, that was neurodevelopmental treatment, where the big muscles were being worked upon. And what I used to do was work on fine motor skills. So if my point that I'm trying to tell you is only working on fine motors is not going to help. The first thing to be worked upon is the postural muscles. So working on positions where the child is on tummy, swinging, on tummy, activities where the child is doing something like a head to toe rocking or something like a supine flexion activities. Now, those are the base level activities which would help a child to develop those postural muscles. And then we work, and then, as in not first this and then that, but the postural muscles have to be developed before you just work on fine motor skills. Okay. So we work on postural muscles. Then we work on a lot of activities for shoulder strength. Now, what are the activities? When a child climbs on jungle gyms, when a child hangs from a monkey bar, when a child climbs up on those trees. So apart from those activities, what I just told you, prone extension and supine flexion to work on core, the other activities that would involve would be climbing up inclined surfaces where the core is getting co-activated, walking on those narrow paths where the core is going to get activated. So those are all fun ways to work on core activation. Then I told you work on shoulder. Then we work on fine motor skills. So a lot of skills. Now, most of us in our daily living skills. So when we were kids, I learned a lot of fine motors through my daily activities. I used to help my mom with making chapati. So, rolling that dough in your hand, using a rolling pin to make it, or, even pinching through the Play Doh. So nowadays we use Play Doh. In those days, at least in my childhood, I learned while I was helping my mom, so there was no separate fine motor work that was done. Crumpling paper, tearing paper are the ways that we worked upon. Daily living activities like opening a toothpaste, that requires your fine motor skills. Opening up your bottle lids requires fine motor skills. We use a lot of scissors to work on developing the skills. There are scissors where you get this one side is bigger than the other, for the three fingers to pass through. That is a better way to develop on use scissors. And then you can take smaller scissors and even smaller scissors. Some people that I know start using plastic scissors and they cut dough. So that's again another way to work on fine motor skills. Simple things like using cloth pins, cloth pins while the clothes are drying, and in the evening again using the cloth pins to remove the clothes that have already dried are great ways. Pulling, wearing shoes and pulling your, wearing your shoe requires fine motor. Removing your shoe requires fine motor. Opening the Velcro requires fine motors. So, carrying your bag and opening the zip, closing the zip, that requires fine motor skills. Uh, some zips are big, that is easy to begin with, and the smaller the zip, the more difficult. Even our cushion covers have zips. So opening it, closing it, these are again some ways by which we can provide a lot of opportunity to developing those fine motor skills. Taking things in the palm of the hand and moving them to the fingertips, taking them from the fingertips, moving them back to the palm. Those are called in hand manipulation skills. So maybe taking a lot of coins, moving them and putting them into a piggy bank. Those are the kinds of things that you can work upon. So in hand manipulation skills develop after say 3.5 years of age. So if your child is younger, do not worry about that. But working on those kinds of activities, using rubber bands is something that I used to do. So when I used to work, I used to have like a board with pointy, spokey things, and we used to make shapes with rubber bands, or simply putting a rubber band in the hair, putting the rubber band, on a cover that you use, like a bread that you open, putting a rubber band on that, asking your child to support that would be helpful. We put a lot of these TikTok pins. So putting these TikTok pins, opening them, closing them, putting them into the hair. These are great ways. Even something like earrings. If you have a child who's a girl, so wearing earrings, combing hair, these all also require fine motor skills. Daily activities, if I talk about dressing, then buttoning t-shirts, opening t-shirts. A lot of people practice these skills on a tabletop. I prefer making the child wear it and practice it on the body. Wearing belts, opening the loops of the belt, closing the loop of the belt, those are another set of activities. Now there are different kinds of belts, one which just fix in, the others which have a hook to it, and many others which have to be put, the needle goes into the hole and it has to be put. Opening those bottles of sunscreens, opening those spray bottles, maybe deodorants, or maybe the screen cleaners that you get. So spraying, basically pressing, those are great ways to work on fine motor skills. Opening and closing the caps of pens, of markers, those are another few activities that come to my mind. Opening up those specs case, giving your child the specs case, and the child puts it inside and closes it. Opening drawers, pulling them, putting them, different knobs, using them, and tying the string of the pajama. Those are advanced fine motor skills which we can work upon. When you go out and you want to come back home, giving your child the keys, and the child opens the main door, or the child opens the cupboard with the keys. Then, peeling fruits. It could be peeling banana, it could be peeling oranges. Those are few more ways to work on fine motor skills. Now, if you've done that, now if I talk about fine motor fun games, where is Thumbkin? Where is Thumbkin? Then what is that? What is that? Daddy finger, working on finger games. What I do is I put puppets, you get those finger puppets. And when I keep the hand, there are finger puppets, and I would keep the hand on the table, and I would say, now I want the lion to roar, and the child has to lift that up. Okay, now I want the dog to bark, so the child will pick up the other finger. So working on finger differentiation is another thing that we work upon. Now once all this is done, we work on giving a fat marker, and we work on basic tracing of standing lines, sleeping lines, slanting lines, curves, like a C, the other way around, as in the C. So C and the mirror image of C, N, U, tracing all of these alphabets, not alphabets, but pre-writing with a marker, using a stick when you go out for a walk, like a stick or a very small chalk, sitting in a squatting position, making those figure of eights. So you're moving from, gross motor, the core, to the shoulder. From the shoulder, you're going to the fingers. From the fingers, you're working on in-hand manipulation skills. And then finally, you move on to pre-writing skills. Whenever we work on pre-writing, we do it on a vertical surface. I have a video where I've explained the different kinds of pre-writing academic activities that you can start, which I'm attaching over here. You can check that. And then once this fine motor writing is achieved, then you go with using pen and pencil. Uh, a lot of kids, that I know of, as a part of daily activities. They can comb your hair, they can put the rubber band for you. I know of some kids who help and they put nail polish for their parents. That's again a fine motor skill. I used to do a lot of these kinds of things with girls. And even if it is a boy, I would tell. So I used to tell my son to put nail polish for me, you know. So just being creative, not just having, you know, those games like fixing blocks or fixing links. Those are great, but that's not the only way to work on fine motor skills. So putting nail polish, putting you know, like a kajal or a liner, these are other activities that I would also add up. Earrings, you know, putting a necklace or like a beaded necklace and closing behind, these are the kinds of things that the child can do for you as a part of fine motor activity. So my aim was to tell you that when we work on fine motors, we just don't straight away get into fine motors, and it's not just about doing those blocks and links and give me the link, where do I buy this toy from. But in your daily activities, if your child can participate in all of these activities, child is learning to be a good helper, feels more confident that the child is helping you, feels more confident that the child is able to do things for himself, and you're building on fine motor skills. Let me know if this was helpful. Which are the ones that you use already out of all of these? Do you provide opportunities in your daily living skills to your child? Do share those pointers with me, and let me know if this was helpful. And we'll meet up next week.